Well, of course, Canada is heading into Remembrance Day, a solemn time each year where we think back to those who fought and died for our country. Whether it is past wars like the First World War, the Second World War, Afghanistan, peacekeeping operations, all of it matters. And we take a great deal of time to commemorate them. Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Joining me to talk about an incredibly interesting project, and we've talked about it before, Kim, is your Canada Remembers Guide project. Kim Walker is the woman behind this. And as we discussed in the past, around the time of the Juno Beach commemorations back in June, it's a labor of love for you, but you've put together these itineraries and guides so that Canadians who want to experience what you've experienced of going to cemeteries and battle sites, that you're able to do that, whether you're landing in Europe from Paris or from Brussels. You've got these guides. You've just gotten back a little while ago from Europe, and you're adding more. Tell me about the experience of going through Holland, where the Dutch are just so thankful still. You still hear about it, of Canada liberating their country.
Thanks, Brian. It's really nice to see you again, and thank you for having me on. So as you mentioned, I created this website to give Canadians free downloadable itineraries that they can use to travel around and visit our cemeteries and memorials in Europe. I already had on the website several itineraries that cover the First World War, so all around Vimy and Arras and Ypres. And I also had itineraries already for the landing beaches. And when we last spoke in June, we talked a lot about that. So itineraries, 1 and 2 day itineraries from Paris. But what is missing is the part of the war where Canadians participated in liberating Europe. So after the landing, as we moved up through France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and ultimately into Germany, those are the itineraries that I added. So those are about to hit the website pretty soon. There's 5 that originate in Amsterdam, Antwerp, and Brussels. And yes, I was recently there. I spent a good solid week in Belgium, in the north of Belgium, in the Netherlands, and visited as many cemeteries and memorials and monuments and museums as I could. So this is actually behind me is my little war plan of I sort of plan it out in advance, like what I try to
That's not a
maximize it.
general's map. That's your own map for where you were
This is
going.
my own little system for finding all the cemeteries. And what I do is ahead of time, I look at every single cemetery. I go through the Commonwealth War Graves Commission database and I locate how many Canadians are in each one. So we sometimes have cemeteries that are Canadian cemeteries. And the one that you and I were talking about earlier is Holten. So we have Adegam, we have Holten, we have Groesbeek, and Bergen op Zoom. So those ones are called Canadian cemeteries, and we have a lot of Canadians there, hundreds and hundreds of Canadians. Beautiful monuments, beautiful memorials, and beautiful explanations about the role that Canada played. But there's also hundreds of other Commonwealth cemeteries where we have burials as well. And it might have been that the airmen were shot down right there. So you'll go to a local general cemetery in a town like Florence or Gosselies, and there's maybe 24 headstones, a special little plot, and they're all our RCAF who were killed in that area, who are then in that plot. So those are the ones I'm trying to find. If it works in an itinerary, I just try to include a mix of the really big ones and a couple of the smaller, more poignant ones.
I want to, and by the way, these itineraries are free, and I want to go over with you how you've set them up, because anyone who's interested in this and wants to take a trip, you will want to download and print off some of Kim's itineraries because of how detailed they are and how they can help you understand how much time you're going to need. But tell me about going to this visitor center in Holten, because you were
Yeah.
really moved at the volunteers that are there helping people understand what is before them.
Exactly. Actually, I just got a little bit choked up thinking about it. It was pretty emotional because I had already been on the road for 4 or 5 days. And, you know, uh, I went to the Holten Canadian Cemetery, and right beside the entrance of the cemetery, it just says Information Center. So it doesn't say museum or war museum or anything like that. It's just Holten Information Center. So I thought, okay, I probably should have done this before this cemetery, but let's have a quick peek in. And I was completely amazed when I went in. All volunteers. It's a nonprofit, run in the Netherlands. Staffed completely by volunteers. These people have been working at this for, I think they opened in 2011. And as soon as you come in, on the wall is a huge map, and all it shows you on the map is where all of the Canadian regiments were in liberating Holland. And then you keep going. They have a database that lists every single Canadian killed. They have maps. I started to cry because I was so happy that this is happening. And one of the volunteers came out and I said, I'm sorry, I'm just a little overcome. And he said, everybody, it happens to everybody who
Wow.
comes in here. It is an incredibly moving experience. But the level of detail they have and the stories they have about some of the soldiers were really, really beautiful. Like, a little vignettes, and where they said how many siblings this person had and where in Canada they had come from and where they died, why they listed. And so I want all Canadians to find that place. Like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, that's going in the itineraries because this is incredible. And any Canadian who goes there is going to be so moved, but you're also going to learn so much about what happened, which regiments were there, where they went, which towns they went through, and obviously incredible losses and sacrifice.
As we said off the top, this really is a labor of love for you. You do this with your own time, with your own money. There's not some big giant company behind you, and the government isn't behind you. Although, I think they should adapt what you're doing and promote what you're doing because it is so wonderful. So, explain the itineraries, because if I was going on my own, I may not know what to do. Where do I look? How do I get there? You've laid that all out.
I have, and actually, I mean, I'm the same. When I started doing this, my first time that I ever did anything war related, I was 23 years old and I was in France, and I hitchhiked and took trains to Dieppe and to Juno Beach, trying to understand like what these places were. And so as I've spent more and more time in these places, I've learned more and more. So when my family, we lived in Belgium for a few years, because of my husband's job. And every time people came over, a lot of them would say, I'd like to go to Vimy. And so great. And we would take all the time, Vimy, and there's cemeteries all around that. But as I learned more and more, I started to expand my area of travel and research, and realized that there's places that I've never heard of, like didn't even know they existed. So I started reading. So I have like about 20 war books all around me right now. Because then I started going, which battles was Canada in? And as soon as I located those, I said, okay, well then there's cemeteries and memorials there. Let's research that area. So I've done all this work. I love doing this, but now I want to give that to other people. I want them to realize that if they go to Paris, for example, you're going to go to Paris anyway, please carve out 1 or 2 days. And it's doable to get to these locations. It's my way of giving people the confidence. You're in a different country. Maybe the names aren't familiar to you. So the names are now all there. There's maps. You're right, it's very detailed.
You you,
Because
you
I'm like,
explain how long it takes to drive,
yes,
how much time you should spend, and a lot. I
yeah,
mean, that's something that you don't know. had a couple of trips this past summer, and I remember saying, "Oh, should we go to that museum?" Well, how much time do you need for that, and is there enough time? Uh, those are valid questions. Will you get the full experience if you only have 45 minutes, or do you need 2 hours? You lay all that out for everyone, right?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, I love how you just said that, because that is exactly what happens is you know about a museum and you say, I want to go there. What I want people to understand is, in addition to the museum, in that same vicinity, there's 5 cemeteries with a lot of Canadians. So don't forget, like, I don't want you to come home and go, oh my gosh, if I wish I knew that there were these things here. So it also, I don't tell people in the itinerary stop for coffee or stop for lunch, but I leave a little bit of leeway for people to actually, pull off and have a bite to eat. But generally these are fairly packed itineraries, and obviously people can make their own adjustments. I actually have had people reach out. My email is on the website. It's just Canada Remembers Guide at gmail.com. I've had people reach out and ask me to customize something for them, and
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
happy to do that. So I helped a friend's sister. She was on a cruise. They were coming into France. Her father had been in the Royal Navy, so she wanted to see where the British had landed, but she's Canadian, and so she wanted to also see Canadians. And her cruise was taking her to the American cemetery. So I called the cruise company and we worked it all out and ended up getting them help to visit every single place.
Oh, that's
Just it's
fantastic.
just yeah, it's just it's fun to help other people discover this.
And one of the most important things I found out when I was in Edinburgh this last summer, uh, it's Europe. The hours are different. We went to try and see one museum. They closed at 4, and the last admittance was 2:30 or 3 because you needed that much time to go through it. And you would never expect that in North America, but those are the types of things you need to know in Europe.
When I first lived in France, when I was a student, uh, every place used to shut down from 12 to 2. Like that was like lunch. Everybody would go home and you'd have a beautiful family lunch. And those days are a little bit behind us, but no, the European hours can be a little bit different. And the other thing is, sometimes there'll be, you'll have a museum that is always closed on a Wednesday, or, things like that. But I did put that in the itineraries just so everybody knows. If it was limited hours, or if I thought there was a risk in the itinerary that you wouldn't make it to this museum, I had a little in italics note. This was closed at 5 o'clock, so chop chop.
I know that when you were over for Vimy, sorry, not Vimy, but Juno back in the
In
spring,
June. Mhm.
you did find a headstone with the Lilley name on it. So, is there a way for people to find that if they know? Okay, well, I had a relative that served in this area and they died. Can I look that up somewhere?
Absolutely. So my resource, one of the first books I bought was the Commonwealth War Graves Commission guidebook, and this just covers uh, Belgium and northern France, but it lists where all of these cemeteries are. The database has a listing of every single person who died while
And
serving.
and
So
that's
if
on the
you
website of the Commonwealth War Graves.
Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and everybody in this Remembrance family, because I wanted to kind of circle back to a point you made earlier about partners basically working on this. And there is actually sort of a Remembrance family out there. There are other people trying in their ways, in various ways, to help people, maybe understand the story, or keep stories alive, tell veteran stories. There's a Remembrance family, mostly volunteers like me. But the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, originally the Imperial War Graves, does have a listing. And so to find, and again, I can help anybody with this, but you can look up your relative's name. So in your case, I did check, and the spelling of your name is a unique because
Mhm.
of the EY at the end. And so I looked that name up and realized in the vicinity where I was a headstone of a possible relation to you. Um, but that is doable, and you'll see that in the when you enter every one of the Commonwealth cemeteries, it's always the same. You walk through the gates. You usually have two structures on either side, and one of them will have the registry, so people can sign the visitor's book, and you can open the registry. It lists every single name of every single soldier in the cemetery in alphabetical order, where they are. So you row F, spot 3 kind of thing. They also, though, and usually have a little explanation about, the origin of that cemetery. So yeah, it's definitely in the visitor's book. I always open them up and have a flip through, and I write, I always sign, and I tell people in my itineraries, in addition to some snacks for the car, you need a pen. There's most of them have a pen, but bring a pen. You want to sign the visitor's book, and it's quite moving to see what people write. And in a lot of cases, it's thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Thank you, great Uncle Frank. So people are trying to find their relatives, and they're going to the exact place and paying their respects. And later I'll send you a couple of photos, but sometimes there's like a painted rock that says we remember.
Wow.
People have left little tokens in the cemetery. So yeah, people are trying to find their families.
Kim, thanks for your work on this. Thanks for sharing it with me and with the audience once again. Very touching and moving and appropriate for Remembrance Day.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Remember to visit the website, CanadaRemembersGuide.com.